Welcome to the Turn One Studio podcast. I'm Elliot Custodio with Turn One Studio, and on this podcast, we sit with business professionals we know and admire. Today's guests are Rex and Connie Farr from Farrm Wines. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you guys are winemakers? Is that the right way to classify what you do?
No.
No. Elaborate, please.
We are farmers and we grow wine. We have a winemaker, Greg Gove.
Okay.
Okay, but we were the first certified organic farm on Long Island, and we are the only vineyard that has had no chemicals on our farm since 1985.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
From what I understand, Long Island, at least back in the day, was big on potato farms, right?
Correct.
Okay. Were there a lot of chemicals used then?
I would imagine.
Okay.
We came up dirty in 1991. Our water came up dirty, got notified by the county that we were 59 parts per temic aldehyde that was used for the Colorado potato beetle. Okay, so we were the potato capital of the country for 50, 55 years.
Yeah.
You bet. Aldehyde replaced DDT. What does that tell you?
Okay. So you're a wine farmer.
Yes.
You're growing grapes.
Yes, we're growing grapes.
Okay. How many acres?
8 acres in grapes, but we farm 60 acres.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Actually, now we're farming 40. We sold 20.
All contiguous or all over the place on the island?
No. All contiguous. When we started farming, our first commercial year was 1989 when we got certified by NOFA New York.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're certified by the USDA. Disgraceful. So we started farming with vegetables and culinary herbs. Connie put together one hell of a menu.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. And our market was actually New York City, Union Square, and restaurants in New York City and on Long Island, primarily at that point, the South Side.
So you started off with produce before getting into grapes.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So from a daily basis, what is your relationship? Who's handling which items, and what are you doing on the farm versus what you're doing on the farm?
Well, I try not to do too much.
Good for you.
I like to be retired. But I don't know. Rex will give you the farming end of it.
Yeah, I wear a couple of different hats, from marketing and working with Molly to sitting on a tractor and taking care of business.
Hands on.
Yeah, there are 25 jobs that have to be done in a vineyard, whether you're organic or whether you're conventional.
Okay.
Using chemicals.
To each vine
Right.
needs.
So let's talk a bit about organic. You've mentioned that a few times. Obviously, I'm aware of the health benefits of being organic. Does it change the taste of the wine?
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, I mean, I've never personally drank Roundup, but
So you're saying it's less chemical in taste?
I
it's
don't think you taste it as much as feel it,
Okay.
you know? What do you think?
I think, wine is the one product that epitomizes the relationship between the soils and the crop. Okay, climate will dictate what variety that you're going to be growing, whether it's a vegetable or let's say a tomato, which is a fruit, by the way.
Mm-hmm. It's technically a berry, right?
What?
A tomato is technically a berry?
A fruit, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Well done.
I'm trying.
Yeah. No, it's not only from a health standpoint. Obviously, drinking Roundup, and 70% of our wine in this country, test positive for Roundup. Of course, that's going to alternate the taste of that soils. I've argued for years, and I've been farming for 40 years, so I know a little bit about growing. Well, I do know a little bit about drinking. I've been doing that a little longer, and I'm learning about making. But really where my head is and my heart is, it's in the vineyard and watching. And when you go out into our vineyard and you feel what you've been drinking, because our visitors come over, we talk, we taste, and we tour if they want, no charge. But when you're standing in the vineyard and you're feeling what you've been drinking, much more European head. We're about to get certified biodynamic, which we have been practicing for 40 years.
Okay, what is that?
Biodynamic is really farming by the moon. The handle biodynamic was given by a guy called Rudolf Steiner, okay, who in 1924 did a series of lectures on agriculture. This guy was a wacky Austrian who wrote papers about the soils after the First World War in Europe dead. Okay, so you were never going to be able to grow a healthy crop, whether it was a grape or a tomato, didn't matter. Okay, but the way he came about dispersing or putting back these what we call biodynamic preps was rather interesting, and again, it's all about energies up here, and we've been farming biodynamically, or biodynamically has been being farmed for centuries.
Is that similar in concept? Maybe this is naive. Is it similar in concept to how the moon affects tides?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, that's one of my first lines when trying to describe biodynamics. Steiner wrote, a paper, like I said, in 1920. Then he gave lectures in 1924. He gave the handle biodynamics, but I mean, I've had workers in the field, okay, especially when we were doing 60 crops, that he'd go, hey, boss, time to plant peas. Well, how do you know? And they point up. Because it's exactly what you said. It's farming by the moon, it's gravity and the flow of water.
Interesting.
I did bring a calendar that we use actually on our when we do press releases and stuff like that, monthly.
That explains that concept?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't explain. It just shows you.
Okay.
Okay. I don't have the time, nor do I have the knowledge, actually, of trying to explain what goes on. I'll give you one example. Okay. There are only two ways of applying biodynamics, and I consider biodynamics referring to the energies. Okay, so if you understand, and you've all heard how the moon does affect high and low tides, that's how I look at my crops. So a biodynamic calendar, okay, which actually was preset centuries ago. I mean, the stars haven't moved around.
Right.
The moon hasn't moved around. Okay, maybe the Earth has gone a couple of degrees one way or the other. Okay, but that will affect. But it's all about those energies, and so he came up with a way of applying biodynamics. There are 9 biodynamic, what we call preps, and the one way of applying biodynamics is through spraying, but not in the traditional sense. So what Steiner has us do is to go out and grab a handful of manure, cow, female, because cow is an earth sign, and bury that put that into a horn, cow, female, again, and bury that along with a little bit of dandelion in the manure, and bury that for a year. Okay, at the end of that year, you're going to take that manure out with the dandelion and put it into a stirring machine. And you're going to do it on the day of that crop. Because it's all about gravity and water, just like gravity affects the high and low tides. So I, obviously growing grapes, fruit, I work on a fruit day, okay? But what's interesting is he then says add silica and equisetum, okay, into the stirring machine and stir for an hour. How in heaven's name did he come up with this stuff? I have no idea.
Right.
I keep saying, the peyote bud must have been phenomenal because walls do move. But you're going to be stirring that concoction for an hour, a minimum. And you're going to do it on the day of the crop. So in my case, I work on a fruit day when I'm working with biodynamics. I work 7 days a week, but on the biodynamic front, spraying. And so I'm going to put this into a stirring machine and I stir for 1 hour. But what's interesting is that every 3 minutes in my case, I reverse direction. So I started out, we'll say clockwise, okay, and I've created order. I'm working with, when you stir, you create that vortex. That vortex is geometrically and a very powerful reciprocal of the energies that are up there.
Right.
And everything is aligned with the phases of the moon, with the flow of water in that crop, okay? Right. And every 3 minutes, in my case, because I have a 105-gallon tank that I stir, and my spraying machine is 100 gallons roughly, I'll reverse direction. Now, when I reverse direction, I create chaos. Okay, it takes me a couple of minutes to get back into order, going counterclockwise, and again creating that vortex. Then I go into the field. I transfer from the stirring machine to my sprayer, and I'll go into the field, and I will broadcast in the air, much like a weather station, where you're creating clouds and you want to create rain and what you're putting up there. Okay, I've seen footage. I've never been to let's say, a naval station, which we have one right down the road, I believe, somewhere in Suffolk County. Okay, and we go out and we put that into the air. I'm not trying to get it on every grape. I'm not trying to get it on every leaf.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's interesting because it's the story behind what's in the bottle, or at least a part of it, right?
Yeah.
Because most of us will just take the bottle, pour a glass, enjoy that glass, and have no idea what it took.
Well,
especially this to make what's in there.
Yeah. Well, again, we farm organically as well. So for me, organics is all about the soil. Biodynamics is all about the energy. Okay, up above. And we've had so many visitors come through and go, I can drink wine all day long when I'm in Italy and never feel bad. I come back and have a glass and I feel like crap.
Sulfites, is that the answer?
That's what they
No,
say.
they go, I get headaches from sulfites. Well, sulfites are kind of a natural part of the fermentation. Okay, and they do get headaches, but not because of the sulfites. It's because they had 2 bottles instead of 1.
Oh, okay. So it's simple math. They overdid it.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we've had people, like I said, been to Italy. I can eat all the pasta and never gain a pound.
Right.
Come back here and you're drinking that glass of wine and you're going to feel bad.
And you're saying that's the connection between organic versus processed.
I'm saying it's the difference between chemicals and no chemicals.
Okay.
Okay, it's as simple as
Europe
that. The way
doesn't have all the chemicals in farming that we do.
Interesting.
It's really sad to.
Most people haven't a clue in the world that the bread they've been eating forever, how it's done, how it's grown, how it's made.
Are the majority of the chemicals used for pest control?
Oh, no. You've got herbicides, weed control.
Okay,
that's a big one.
So how do you
that's
handle
Roundup.
that? How do you handle that organically? Let's say weed control.
I mechanically cultivate or manually cultivate.
Okay.
Meaning I go in under the grape and mow.
And if
basically.
you're organic long enough, your soils are healthy and you shouldn't be getting bugs or stress.
Will the soil actually, in essence, fight that? If it's healthy enough?
If you read Steiner's papers, bottom line is that the longer the earth has been around, it does, like crops, deplete some of the nutrients, if you will, when we move around. So chemicals, and the example that I use when people come to the farm is bread. When they go to make bread, what do? They go in, they disc. And as they're disking, they're putting down Roundup. Okay, now we've all heard about Roundup. That's been, actually Monsanto or who makes, I guess it's Bayer. I can't remember who makes, doesn't matter. And so as they're disking to break the soil up, then they're going in and laying down a pre-emergence herbicide, Roundup. Then they seed. So from the get-go, that wheat seed has been ingesting Roundup.
Right.
Then how wheat takes 2 or 3 months, whatever, you're spraying on top of what you've already put down. Okay, so organics is fungicides and herbicides, and I don't mean fungicides or organic. Well, they are because they're natural, powdery and downy mildew.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go in instead of using, and neither of us went to ag school, so I have no idea what the chemical is that they use, because that's the biggest problem we have out here in the wine industry.
What was the catalyst for the pivot from growing vegetables to growing wine?
Well,
You were thirsty? Was that the answer?
No. My line is that all good stories started in a bar.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm sitting there. They said it couldn't be done. Well, there was a bottle of Jack in the bar.
Okay.
I woke up the next morning, and the Jack was gone, and the grapes were in. That's my story. I'm going to stick to it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Were
but
that easy overnight, right?
well, I do know that Connie probably was the inspiration for farming organically. Again, no chemicals since '85.
Yeah.
And that, if wine is the epitome, the product that epitomizes the relationship between the crop and the soils, okay, to have, when we pour our wine, you're drinking 20,000 years in the making.
Yeah.
That glacier came in 20,000 years ago, deposited some incredible minerals, into our soils, all up and down the East Coast.
Sure.
Okay, and so what you're drinking is the essence of terroir, the essence of Long Island soil. No one else can say that.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Talk about the experience visiting the farm. Because we have a lot of vineyards and farms on the island. They are very often open to the public.
Yeah.
So what are you guys offering with that?
You're going to go in, and depending on the time of year during the season, you're going to go into that vineyard. You're going to first take a deep breath and figure out there's nothing synthetic about what's going on. You're going to walk on that soil, walk on that ground, and you're going to feel a give and take, because it's not going to be cement. It's not going to be pounded, even with tractor and soil compaction. Then you're going to get up close to that vine. And depending on the time of year, you're going to be able to tell the difference between the Merlot grape and the Cabernet Franc grape. We grow 4 Bordeaux, red only, Malbec, and a Petite Verdot. We make 4 reds, a blend of the 4 grapes that we grow, and a varietal in the Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and a Petite. But when you're out there and you can actually touch, and you've been tasting for a half hour prior to walking into the vineyard, that's that exclamation point. That goes boom, shakalaka, boom.
So when you're taking those varietals and you're making wine, what is the average time from grape to bottle?
Well,
to glass, I should say,
right.
to actually
It
drinking
depends,
it.
It depends on
First
the
is
right.
rosé.
Yeah.
Rosé is very quick.
Okay.
Well,
so what is quick?
6 months in stainless steel.
Is that right?
Right.
6
We-
months.
We
okay.
harvest for the rosé usually a couple of weeks, the month before, because we don't need to have the brick or the sugar quite as high.
Okay.
Okay, and so our reds are 18 months in wood, French oak. Okay, and we won't know what bottles we are going to be making from that vintage until we get down the road. The wine has been into the barrel, and we keep the varieties separate. Each, the Merlot will have a barrel, and the Cabernet will have a barrel, and the Malbec, and so on. And as that grows, and this is where, I rely very much on my winemaker, Greg Cove, who I think's done a wonderful job. We've been working together now for 6 years, I guess, and he's the one that has to make the decision in terms of, like, for example, yeast. And what's very interesting about is, because we're very excited about the biodynamic certification, Demeter. It is a way of farming in Europe which accounts for I can eat all the pasta. I want never gain a pound.
Right.
Okay. The way we grow our food, the way we, when the government comes out and goes, alcohol is bad for you. No, it's not. It's the way you grow your barley, for God's sakes. You're going to grow barley in Roundup, and guess what?
Sure.
You're going to taste that in your booze. Whatever.
So obviously you're very passionate about Long Island, among many other things. I could get that from you already. How do you compare Long Island to, say, Napa?
Well, I was in the Army in 1966 and stationed at Fort Ord, so I really didn't get a chance to go up to Napa. When I got out, it's hard. Apples and oranges, okay? Different soils, different climates.
Well, if I were...
Well, I'll tell you one thing. What's our biggest crop out here?
That's a good question. I know it's not potatoes anymore. Is it still corn?
No.
Is it wine?
No. Agrotourism.
Is that right?
You damn right.
Okay.
We're farming 25,000 acres. When we were the potato capital, we were farming 100,000. We are now more of an artisan community.
Okay.
We're growing snails.
Are we really?
Yeah.
But someone is.
Well, so, yeah.
Somebody is right.
No.
Interesting.
You know,
And-
snails.
But are
That's
there
where I
any
go.
are there any characteristics, and maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but if I'm not, are there any characteristics between what you would get from a California wine versus a Long Island wine?
Oh, yeah.
Something that we
They
could be
have-
proud of as Long
well,
Islanders.
California has a different taste for wine than we do.
Because they have different soils.
You're
So-
saying their palate's different, so how they perceive it's different.
Well, yeah, they like a heavier kind of
Oh, okay.
wine, I think, right? Wouldn't you say, Rex?
Are we generally a
No,
thinner
I'm
wine here?
I'm saying that the taste of that bottle comes from the soils. And if you have disrupted the soils through synthetics, through chemicals, you're going to get a different taste. That's why not only are you going to get headaches and get cancer and all that kind of shit. Sorry, but it's the soils. It's not, the heaviness will come from the variety that you grow. And there has been a discussion since day one out here, because the first grape was put in, first wine grape was put in by the Hargraves in 1974. Okay, and it's now called Borghese.
Okay.
The Borghese Vineyard's been around for 20, 25 years. Okay, we farm sandy loam. We have clay, and so we have 2 inches of topsoil,
Right.
as opposed to Dakotas, that have 20 feet of topsoil. It's all about the soil, and that's what organic is about. That's what biodynamic is about. Not disturbing that, and that's what gives not only our wine, and the only word I use to describe our wine is clean.
Right.
Whether you're drinking the rosé or you're drinking, the Cabernet Franc, it's clean if you haven't messed around with. And that affects the taste, okay, and on and on and on.
Is Long Island a good place from a business perspective for your type of business?
How can it not be? You got 10 million people down the road.
Okay.
We're the number one market in the country, I would think.
All right. So you're happy with that then?
Well, I'm a native Manhattanite. I got bodies buried behind Trinity Church. I wore red in 1680.
Okay.
New York was controlled by the British, for those of you who don't know that.
Oh,
The more you know. So before we wrap up, how do folks interested in checking out the farm get in touch with you?
Give us a call. Go online.
Your web address?
What is it? Farmwine.com.
With 2 R's.
With 2 R's, exactly.
Well, I think this was a good conversation because you're helping the audience be smarter consumers, if you will, right? If they don't know the difference between why organic is important versus something that's non-organic.
And unfortunately, we're at a time where we've got buzzwords in agriculture. Organic is a buzzword. The USDA's definition of organic is marketing and not growing. It took them 22 years to admit that the word organic, and the reason the USDA created the national program was because organic product was getting 20, 25% more. That's true now at retail, not at wholesale, I might add.
Sure.
Okay.
But are there not standards that define what is and what is not organic in your world?
In my world, I'm a purist.
No, I mean, from the government standpoint.
Oh, where do you want me to start?
Maybe we don't have time for that. But
We don't.
But you're saying it's broad and open to interpretation.
I'm saying beware of, and I'm not
Okay.
trying, because we've walked a fine line for 40 years. This lady here, when we did Union Square, and there would be a stand across from us and saying organic, this lady was on that stand like, would you get certified, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, I'm not the police. I don't care.
Well, I think this is a fantastic conversation. Thank
thank
you
you.
guys for coming by, Connie. It was a pleasure.
thank you.
Rex?
Likewise, really, I hope
is
you
wonderful.
get a chance to come out and taste some of our wine. You got a bottle of wine on me?
I appreciate
Or
that.
on us?
I certainly will.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.